Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit, and you know what? I suppose this is why we can't have nice things, isn't it? That was a series we did a long time ago. I say a series, it was really a trilogy. We did 3 episodes of it. Didn't really have the time to get anything else sorted out, mainly because it was the nature of it was a collab series that made it somewhat difficult to do. However, I think this game actually deserves that treatment, and as opposed to saying this is why we can't have nice things, I suppose we can say gaming CPR, because this game isn't quite dead yet, and we have an opportunity, I feel, to make it a little bit more popular and hopefully extend its lifespan, because honestly I think it deserves it. It goes by the name of Section 8 Prejudice, and this game was released this year. I did a video of a pre-release beta version, as well as a video of the game itself upon release. And quite frankly, it's one of the best $15 games that I've ever had the pleasure of playing, and at the moment, it's definitely one of the best FPS. That I can guarantee. I completely screwed up against that guy, but that's okay. That's not a problem. I can live with that. The rage will dissipate over time, and this is a fairly reasonable bit of gameplay that gets better as we go along. Now, it's kind of a shame that I should have to re-explain this game, because I thought I gave it a pretty stellar WTF is, and then people just didn't buy it, which is really sad. I mean, I can understand if it's a, say, a $60 game, but this game, if you can believe it, actually released at $15. That's an unbelievable amount. It's a tiny, tiny amount of money. And yet, for some inexplicable reason, it didn't do well. And I really don't know why. Is it the nature of the game itself? Did the game confuse people? Is it because some people thought it was basically a Halo ripoff, and at which point they need to be slapped around the face? Because I'm pretty sure you don't do that in Halo. Look at that. That's how you spawn. You drop from the frickin' sky. That's a fairly original concept, I feel. Yes. You drop into battle. You can land pretty much anywhere, as long as you don't get stuck in anti-air fire. And hell, even if you have the appropriate spec, you can actually fly through anti-air fire, which makes you a pretty badass person, I have to say. Also, my shotgun shoots fire. Just FYI, it has incendiary rounds in it. It's rather nice, as I think you can probably tell. Unfortunately, I'm surrounded, but not too bad. Take 2 or 3 kills. Not too shabby. So I guess we're re-explaining this game, and more to the point, we're explaining why this game is absolutely fantastic. I'm currently playing on the Cynical Brit server. It is one of the only servers that really gets population anymore. In fact, I think it's the 2nd ranked server in the world at the minute, which doesn't really take much. It's fairly easy to find, and I'm going to put a little guide on how to find it at the end of this video, so if you're not interested in watching this video, but you do want to connect to the server and you already know what Section 8 is all about, then just skip to the end and you shall find the details. This game gets progressively larger as we go through, as well as more and more people join it, realizing, hey, God, there's an active game going on in Section 8 Prejudice, which is sadly not as common as I would like. Now, as you probably noticed, the maps are pretty large in this game, and this is one of 3 maps that come with the game, and there are 4 more available via DLC packs. I'm not really concerned about the lack of maps, honestly, because 3 maps is entirely enough for me. I mean, hell, there are plenty of servers that you've seen with other FPS that will play the same map 24/7, because maps tend to be awesome, and this game in particular has some fairly dynamic and interesting stuff going on, and I'll show you some of that momentarily. Now, what you just saw me doing there to get to this location, to travel a little bit faster, as this area is rather large, is to use the overdrive mechanic. When you hold down the run button for a few seconds, you will go into overdrive, which means you go into third-person perspective and you start to blitz forward. If you ram into an enemy while you're doing so, you will actually deal damage. There is an achievement for killing somebody while ramming them into, like, say, a solid rock wall or whatever. You can do it. It's fairly effective. Good way of getting into the mix. There's no real doubt about that. Land down here. You'll notice there that this is actually a terrible place to land. Dear God, why did I decide to do that? Like, ah! Yep, surrounded and annihilated. It's not a very smart thing to do. You can drop everywhere, but it's not recommended that you do so. And it's certainly not recommended that you drop in the middle of an AA zone, because you will almost certainly perish unless you take a very specific spec. And as you probably saw if you watched my WTFs of this game, and you certainly should if you want to know more about the mechanics in detail, you can change your spec around by assigning points to various attributes, and one of those attributes happens to be a massive amount of anti-aircraft resistance. So it is possible to... I'm not sure if it's possible to be fully immune, but it's certainly possible to be very immune to anti-aircraft, and if you spawn at the right time with your squad, you can actually absorb a lot of the fire for that squad going down, and you guys can all actually land in an anti-aircraft zone, which is usually a place that you cannot do that, and as a result, you can take the enemy by surprise, or of course get a really good hack. Okay, that was a turret firing on me, that wasn't an enemy, so I should be able to get a hack here. Basic gameplay is based around 4 control points, but to say that it's just 4 control points would completely ignore some of the major mechanics in this game. You can see up to the right-hand side of the display that there is an objective to collect intel. These are called DCMs, Dynamic Combat Missions, and these are going to happen at random throughout the course of the game, and there's a number of different Dynamic Combat Missions available, and that's going to determine exactly what you should be doing. Now, you don't have to do them, but it is certainly advisable to do so, although you do have to be extremely careful with managing, holding on to the control points versus actually grabbing the dynamic combat mission objectives, because you're going to gain points for both. You're going to gain consistent points in the style of many other capture point game types in many other FPS for actually holding on to for holding on to a control point, and holding on to that as well is helpful because it does limit where people can land. If you hold on to a control point, you also gain access to the anti-aircraft guns that are at that control point, and that area effectively becomes denied for anything other than a very coordinated drop with the mechanics and the spec that I was talking about earlier. You can knock those turrets out, that's something to consider, and you can also call in your own turrets using the buying system, and you'll see that I've got some space dollars or whatever the hell they are in the corner, and I gain these for completing objectives as well as killing enemies. Smashy, smashy. You, sir, are on fire. And that is an unfortunate situation for you to be in, but his friend came along. I hate his friend. I'm going to go hunt him down later. Buying menu allows you to conjure, I suppose, call in via drop a wide variety of deployables, as well as one of 3 vehicles. There is a hover bike, which is perhaps my favorite. There is a mech suit, which is heavily armored and has double miniguns, as well as an extremely powerful melee attack that can be used to basically crush a soldier in a single blow if you happen to be doing it right. And there is also a tank, which has 4 spots in for passengers. There are 4 weapons on that tank in total, so that's something to consider. That thing, if you fill it up, is absolutely deadly. There's mortars, missiles, chain guns, and a large main cannon, which can be used by the pilot. But my god, is it a big target. If a tank gets on the field, everyone suddenly grabs their rocket launchers and decides, you know what, I would really like that tank to be dead right now. And you can hardly blame them for doing so. Not doing so well at the moment, but don't worry, things will get better. Our control point's been hacked, which is unfortunate because that means I am dead. I was landing there, it's like, oh, it's safe, it's ours, and then suddenly it gets hacked and the control of the AA guns reverts to the other side. And like, well, I guess I'm dead then. Not too much of a problem. You'll also notice I'm in a squad there. You can spawn on squad, but you should be very careful to do so because you can end up landing in an AA zone. They may be on the ground. It's like, hey, I'll just click squad spawn. Nope. Right into anti-aircraft. Unfortunately, I chose to brake a little bit late, which means that I have a couple of seconds of recovery time there, but it does mean I get to the ground a little bit faster, and I can do something along those lines. There's the double kill. Ooh, that was the deployment of the mortar there, and I set that guy on fire, so I ended up killing him, but I have a feeling I'm going to die here. And that's exactly what happened. Oh well, 2 for 1, a reasonable trade. I'm okay with that. Not that it really makes too much of a difference. You can respawn and get back to the ground instantly. Oh, he capped the point. I love the fact that you actually have something to do while you're spawning. This is a good mechanic. It's being adopted by certain games. Awesome Noughts is an example. Something that I showed you at the Eurogamer Expo, which is a 2D Dota-style game, has a mechanic similar to this, whereby you drop in from orbit. In this case, it's just, this is a spawn timer. This takes time to do, but in the meantime, you can keep an eye on what's going on the ground. It's possible that you can actually die entirely if horrible things end up happening to you. And you can also choose when to apply your air brakes, and once you apply your air brakes, you actually gain control, and you can pilot yourself closer to an objective, it's possible to break at a certain time, then fly off towards a base, take some anti-aircraft fire coming in, but actually safely land and go right for the cap. It's risky, but it's something that you can actually pull off. And that is very, very cool indeed. You, sir, are going down. Now, those who are veterans of the game will know that there is a lock-on mechanic in this game. It's perhaps one of the more questionable features that was put into it. It was designed, I suppose, to allow you to finish off enemies that decided just using their jetpack. And yes, you do have jetpacks in this game, as you probably have noticed. It's a good way to escape. What you can do is, for a very brief period of time, you can hold down control, which will activate a lock-on, and it will lock onto your target, and for the most part, it will get you a hit. It's very powerful with the sniper rifle, as you may have noticed there, and it's useful for finishing off enemies that are flying at high speeds. It does take a while to recharge, however. It is possible to go into a spec which will upgrade it a little bit, but bear in mind that you only have 10 points, and if you decide to put points in stuff like that, you're going to be a lot weaker otherwise. For instance, all of my points are put into damage, with 2 points put into speed and jetpack. So I hit like a truck, but I'm incredibly fragile. On the flip side, you can actually put all of your points into armor and health if you want. You can become an absolute tank. You can take far more hits. There's also some speciality kind of specs. For instance, you can get a repair aura and all sorts of stuff like that. And it's pretty cool to be able to muck about with those. You don't gain access to all of the points straight away, unfortunately. You do have to unlock them as you... I suppose it's kind of a level-up mechanic. There are no specific levels in this game, as far as I can tell. It's just something you gain over time by completing challenges and achievements, and you unlock different pieces of equipment. You get all of the weapons from the start, but each weapon has a large number of variants. For instance, the shotgun can be loaded with buckshot, incendiary rounds, EMP, and all sorts of different things like that. And that effectively makes it a different gun entirely. And every weapon is powerful in its own respect. The pistol, actually, is an extremely powerful weapon. It's basically a giant magnum that can do some intense damage if you're good enough to hit with it. Another dynamic combat mission going on right here, which is to recover the pieces of wreckage. So I've been able to grab one of the outlying pieces there. Ooh, now that guy's in an infiltrator suit. That's actually from a DCM earlier. There's a interesting dynamic combat mission called Infiltrator, whereby you have to pick up an infiltrator suit, which is a very powerful suit. It's got a lot more armor than your usual suit, and it's also got a very unpleasant assault rifle and a rocket launcher attached to it. It also can't be locked onto, so that makes it much, much harder to kill. Now, if you keep the infiltrator alive through the mission, then the person in the infiltrator gets to keep that suit, and that makes them very, very dangerous indeed. My god, these guys like me. It's my own fault for going so close to a deployable missile turret, I've got to say, but hey, there you go. So there's lots of things that can end up happening, and each game ends up playing out differently because of these DCMs, and it also makes for natural firefights. You think that on a large map like this, it's possible to just run around and there'd be no firefights or anything going on, but in reality, because of the nature of dynamic combat missions, that generally doesn't occur, because you're going to be fighting over 4 control points and objectives. So there's going to be battles simply breaking out over objectives on the open field, and open field battles are extremely enjoyable. You can move at a reasonable speed via the overdrive mechanic as well as the jetpack, as well, as you can tell. You may notice that some of the combat can be quite slow, but you're also very, very durable. You are wearing an armored suit, after all. You're actually less durable than the first game, but you can take quite a bit of punishment from normal weapons, especially if you happen to give yourself points in shields. And different weapons have different characteristics. For instance, EMP rounds wreck shields, but they're nowhere near as effective against armor, and so on and so forth. I think you get the idea there, but you can take a lot of hits, and as a result, you do have to have a reasonable amount of aim, because if you can't just kill somebody in one shot. Even a headshot from a sniper rifle will not kill somebody that has their shields up. It's as simple as that. It'll do a lot of damage, but it won't kill them. So you're going to have to follow that up with some more punishment there from your weapons. You often run into problems as well of running out of ammunition, having to switch to your secondary. And in fact, switching between your primary and secondary weapons, which could be anything, by the way. You can choose any of the weapons as primary or secondary, and that is a key aspect of being good at Section 8, because you need to use the appropriate weapon for the appropriate situation. And I am so annoyed that I let that guy get away from me. I'll just fire some random shots here. Now, you might think the sniper rifle is very powerful, but bear in mind, if you stand in one place for too long and you actually get detected by a sensor grid or just another player scanning you, of which they do automatically by locking onto you for a certain period of time, then you're going to appear on the map for everybody. So it's very easy for someone dropping from orbit to land on top of you. So camping in this game simply does not work, because it's obvious where you're doing it. You're sitting on a ridge with a sniper rifle. Someone's probably going to fall on your head, and they can actually kill you by landing on you, by the way. It is actually possible to do that. Admittedly, you have got to be very, very precise with where you land, so it is a little bit difficult. Alright. Well, that was an opportunity missed. Let's see if we can actually take him out. There we go. So close. I'm very annoyed that he didn't die there, but it's okay, somebody grabbed it, so I got the assist. Nasty little bikes, but so much fun to pilot. I do get one later on, so if you want to see how the bikes work, then I can do that. I also get a tank, so as you can see, I've got a lot of money there. You think, why aren't I spending it? Well, I need to get into a safe position where I don't have half the enemy team landing on me, and then wonderful things will end up happening. I'm still doing okay, but I certainly end up doing an awful lot better later on. Alright, we should be able to get through here, no problem at all. Yeah, back on the ground. So, what is it that I really enjoy about this game? The fact that it's got multiple objectives happening all the time and that the battlefield always got something to do beyond simply killing people is very, very cool indeed. I like the fact that the majority of combat is skill-based. I still am a little bit iffy on the lock-on mechanic. I certainly use it because, hey, it's there to use. I screwed that one up, though. You can't just jump and then lock on and fire. You've got to be zoomed in with the sniper rifle for that to actually work. Again, I'm a little bit leery on it, but I can see why it's there. And it doesn't really affect the game all that much, because it does take a long time to actually recharge. It just means that you can finish somebody off that's trying to run away and things like that in a fairly easy fashion. But you do have to be careful about what you end up using your lock-on on. If you waste it, then you're not going to have it for quite some time. Here we have ourselves a tank, a rather slow-moving vehicle, very durable with 4 weapon spots. Unfortunately, the guy that got into this doesn't seem to understand how to shoot, so it's going to be a bit of a problem, but it's okay, because I've got a massive, great, stonking cannon. What else do I like about the game, more to the point? Shooting is extremely satisfying. You've got some very, very meaty weapons, and pretty much every weapon is effective. In my opinion, anyway, I think there are some slight problems with certain combinations of weapons and ammo types that some people don't really like, but for the most part, the weapons do seem to be very well balanced, and whatever weapon you pick, you'll probably find a very effective way to use it. There are no weapons in this game which are simply useless, and you should be able to find yourself a role regardless of what you want to choose. When you kill somebody in this game, it just is satisfying. I have a feeling it's just because it's combat between some massively armored dudes, and you actually do handle like you would if you were in a big armored suit like that. You don't move especially fast unless you're sprinting or unless you're using a jetpack, which also means that a lot of the one-on-one combat involves jumping around quite a bit. You might think, oh, that's bunny hopping, but, well, not really, because your jetpack is limited in terms of fuel, as you can tell in the top right there, and it will recharge fairly rapidly, but jumping around and actually dodging as much as possible in combat, and also accuracy, incredibly valuable. You can't simply spam shots because you will simply lose in that respect. You've got to be very accurate with pretty much every weapon you use. The shotgun is nicely effective at close range, but unless you pick a specific ammo type, is absolutely worthless outside of a particular range. You've got to be engaging at a fairly long range in this game. What else do I like about it? I just think the sheer amount of variety of things to do, the multiple objectives going off all the time, and the rewards that you actually receive for doing so. It's not just a case of gain points. For instance, if you complete the Infiltrator mission and keep the Infiltrator alive, then one guy's got the Infiltrator suit, and as such he's going to be an asset to the team. He's going to be someone that is a little bit more powerful than everyone else. The Airstrike mission is another example. You might think, oh, well, just planting a tag marker. Okay, cool, I get the points. No, the airstrike actually happens. So everything in the area is also going to explode, which is a very useful thing to have happen. Another example is Convoy. In Convoy, you actually get a vehicle that can be used with Jammer mission. If you gain control of the Jammer, then that's going to prevent lock-ons. It's also going to make the radar much less useful for the enemy. So all sorts of things end up happening throughout the battle. It's a fairly lengthy battle. A battle will take between 20 and 30 minutes usually. But every little bit of it is going to have something going on. You're always going to be playing for some kind of objective. It's just a really nice game, and I don't understand why people didn't buy it. Was it marketing? Was that an issue? It certainly wasn't price point, because the price was absolutely reasonable. Was it because it's games for Windows Live? I mean, that's never a selling point. That's, in fact, quite the opposite. Some people absolutely despise games for Windows Live, but if I'm totally honest, Games for Windows Live doesn't really affect this game. I mean, it's got dedicated servers. As long as you're logged into Games for Windows Live, then you're fine. It's even got a campaign mode and various other game modes available. It's got Swarm mode, which is particularly awesome, as well as an Assault mode. Swarm mode is basically Horde. 4 players can fight against increasing numbers of enemies. That's a lot of fun to play. But Conquest is my personal favorite, the 40-player mode, which is what we're playing right now. We don't have 40 players on this server at this point. I think we get to that point by the end of it. But we're pretty damn close. You don't get a lot of games like this. This actually reminds me, and I think this is maybe the reason I like Section 8 the most, this reminds me of PlanetSide. It's PlanetSide in a smaller, condensed, but actually in many places far more effective and mechanically sound game. The deployment of vehicles, the fact that you can use deployables, defending bases, attacking bases, accomplishing various objectives, covert ops, squad play, things like that. Hell, even the way that the soldiers handle, aside from the fact that they have jetpacks, is quite similar. So I'm thinking maybe because I get a PlanetSide feel from it, I enjoy it an awful lot. The funny thing is that while this came out on console, I'd say this is quintessentially a PC style of shooter. The multiple objective play has been something that's only really started featuring in console games recently. And I think the PCs, and indeed the people playing on PCs, are the guys who tend to deal with that kind of objective play a bit better. They understand it better. That's a lot of dudes! I'm taking them down with me. You are mine, sucker. Thank you very much. Ooh, that is satisfying. Very much so. I'm gonna have you, and I'm gonna have you. You get a shell, and you get a shell, and you get a shell. There you go. What can I say? I'm Oprah Winfrey in power armor. Kabang. That's what I'm talking about. Oh, you want some? You want some too? You can have it. Trust me, I've got plenty to give away. Oh yes, that's what I am talking about. Kabam. That's not even a real word. I'm going to adopt it as one. Okay, finally I think I'm going to take it with me. I don't care. You are going down. That was a particularly satisfying little kill streak. There are no kill streaks in this game, by the way. You probably already figured that out, but you do gain money and then you can deploy various things. So, there are rewards. I just think this is just so well-rounded. I mean, in terms of a package, you don't tend to find games with this much value at that price. Earlier in the Steam sale, it was 75% off, and I highly encouraged everyone to go and buy it. And I'm hoping that a lot of you actually listened. We did get a full server today, so I guess some of you did. I'm having you. I'm having you. There you go. Even then, $15. It's a reasonable price. The map pack DLC is also worth having, in my opinion. The maps are extremely well designed, and they have an awful lot going for them. They're large as well, which I'm certainly a big fan of. Unfortunately, since some people don't have it, we don't have the maps enabled on our server, so we're just running the default 3. But I think if we get enough, then we'll probably start running the DLC maps. There was also something called the Blitz Pack that has Blitz armor, and it also gives you a couple of unlocks as well. Usually I'd say, well, that's kind of cheap, and I don't really like that, but considering the price they released the game at, I don't really blame them for doing that. Plus, these guys published this independently. Timegate released this. This is an indie game, if you can believe it. And it doesn't look like one. It doesn't feel like one. It is polished and has the amount of content of a full $60 AAA title. It looks good. It's in the Unreal 3 engine. It's got great lighting effects. Texture work is extremely solid. That bike almost fell on my head. You do die if that happens, by the way. I have had that happen. It's quite funny, although a little irritating. Oh, jet bike time. This is always good. So why the hell didn't this sell? Why can we not have nice things, folks? Why is it that people didn't... It wasn't down to lack of good reviews either. Eurogamer gave this a 9. Eurogamer don't give out a lot of 9s. That is a glowing recommendation. I gave it a glowing recommendation, and for some stupid reason, people don't play it. I mean, I enjoy this better than Battlefield 3. I enjoy this better than Modern Warfare 3, obviously. I actually enjoy this more than Tribes, and some people might say, oh, well, it's a poor Tribes knockoff. It's really not. I mean, just because you have jetpacks and you're in power armor doesn't mean it's frickin' Tribes. It does take some elements from Tribes, certainly. The idea of deployables and things like that, that's very much a Tribes thing, but the game is more like a futuristic Battlefield with these dynamic combat missions that I don't really know how to describe them, and no other game, as far as I'm aware, does that. I was hoping to get out of that, but unfortunately that mech decided otherwise. What other game is like this? Can't think of all that many, folks. I really cannot think of all that many. And did the uniqueness hurt it, I wonder? Did the uniqueness hurt it? It would be sad if it did. It's one of 2 shooters this year that I feel deserved a hell of a lot of more success than they actually got. Brink is one of them, although I don't feel as sorry for Brink because it was a AAA title and there were certainly some issues with it, and it did sell a fair amount, but Section 8 Prejudice didn't, and that sucks. However, we do actually have an opportunity to save this game. This is not dead yet, so I would like you guys to strongly consider picking this game up. It is a serious amount of fun. I hope I've just demonstrated what this game can be about, and I think that there's an awful lot more to see. Team play in this game is awesome. If you've got a group of friends you can get on Vent, then you will reap rewards for doing so, and this is how you get onto our server. I'm showing you right now. It's incredibly simple. It's not a problem. This game deserved far more success than it got. However, this is the PC market. Digital distribution prevents games from going off the shelf. If you want to play it, come join our server. Section 8 Prejudice is an amazing game, sadly overlooked. My name is TotalBiscuit, and I will see you next time.